When nothing works, your mind still can, and that changes everything. You've tried harder, waited longer, pushed yourself past exhaustion, and still, nothing seems to shift. The plans fall apart, people let you down, and the more you chase control, the more powerless you feel. It's not just frustrating, it's paralyzing. But here's the truth. Maybe it's not the situation that's broken. Maybe it's the way your mind is interpreting it. Your mind is the key to everything. Not motivation, not luck, not even the people around you. It's how you perceive setbacks, how you respond to chaos, and how you manage your emotions when life doesn't go as planned. Most people spend their lives reacting on autopilot, trapped by their own thoughts, blaming the outside world for what's collapsing inside. But those who rise, truly rise, do something different. They don't try to change the storm. They learn to command the mind that sails through it. This video is not another speech telling you to stay positive. It's a reset, a framework, a new way of seeing. You'll learn how to stop being a prisoner of overthinking, how to build unshakable self-discipline, and how to transform silence into strength. Grounded in Stoic philosophy and modern mental resilience, this isn't theory, it's practice for real life. If you're overwhelmed by noise, tired of chasing calm, and ready to stop handing your power to everything outside you, this is where it turns. Stick with me, subscribe for more, and share your story below, because your mind isn't your enemy, it's your greatest weapon. Let's unlock it. 1. Your mind can be a prison or a portal. The most dangerous prison is the one you don't know you're in. And for most people, that prison isn't made of concrete walls or iron bars. It's made of thoughts, beliefs, and silent assumptions they never question. When life gets hard, they blame circumstances. When they fail, they blame others for luck or timing. But rarely do they pause long enough to ask, is it really the world keeping me stuck, or is it the way I'm thinking about it? That one question, asked honestly, has the power to unlock everything. Your mind is where your story begins. It's where fear takes root, where excuses multiply, where doubt grows unnoticed in the background of your daily life. But it's also the place where resilience is born, where purpose takes shape, where the first spark of transformation is lit. What you allow to live inside your mind shapes the reality you experience outside of it. A man who tells himself he's not worthy will never walk through the doors that open before him. He won't even see them, not because they're not there, but because his mind has already locked them shut. That's why understanding the mind is not optional, it's essential. In Stoic philosophy, everything begins here, not with power, possessions, or even freedom, but with perception. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by things, but by our thoughts about things, which means the battlefield is internal, and the prison, if there is one, is self-made. The bars are the beliefs you've never challenged. I'm not enough. I always fail. I'll never change. These aren't facts. They're stories. And the more you repeat them, the more they feel like truth. But here's what Stoicism offers. If the prison is mental, then the key is also mental. And you already have it. It's the ability to choose a different thought. It's the freedom to observe your mind instead of being dragged around by it. Most people think they need to change their life to feel different. But real change begins the moment you take command of your perception. When you stop reacting and start reframing. When you stop identifying with every thought that passes through your head and start asking, is this useful? Is this even true? Let me make this clear. It's not easy. The mind doesn't like change. It resists discomfort, clings to patterns, and runs back to the familiar, even if it's painful. That's why you need discipline, not punishment. Not perfection, but discipline. The daily act of observing your thoughts, questioning your assumptions, rewriting the script you've been running on repeat for years. That's what makes the difference between staying locked in old patterns or stepping into something new. Picture this. 2 people lose their jobs on the same day. One spirals into panic, tells himself he's a failure, and assumes no one will ever hire him again. The other takes a walk, feels the weight, but doesn't let it define him. He sits down, makes a plan, and reminds himself, this is a setback, not a sentence. Same event, same loss, but completely different realities. Why? Because one became a prisoner of his mind. The other used his mind as a portal to something better. That's what's at stake here. Not just your productivity or your peace, but your entire path forward. If you don't learn how to work with your mind will work against you. It will magnify fears, distort reality, and keep you stuck in cycles that feel real but aren't true. And yet, the shift begins the moment you become aware. The moment you realize, I don't have to believe every thought. I don't have to obey every doubt. I don't have to accept every limitation that was handed to me. That realization is power. Not the loud kind, the silent kind, the kind that builds slowly through practice, through stillness, through clarity. So how do you apply this? Start small. Notice the language you use when you talk to yourself. Are you closing doors before you even try to open them? Catch the phrases, I can't, it's too late, and I've never been good at that. Don't argue with them. Just see them. Then ask yourself, who told me that? And is it still true today? Most times it isn't. It's just a memory pretending to be a fact. From there, begin the work of changing the conversation. One word at a time, one belief at a time. It could be as simple as replacing I always mess up with I'm still learning, or I'm not confident with I'm becoming stronger every day. These aren't affirmations for the sake of comfort. They are mental tools for clarity. They help you rewire your internal map so you stop walking in circles and start moving forward with intention. In the end, your mind is either the reason you rise or the reason you repeat. It is either the lock or the key, and no one else can choose for you. That responsibility, that power, and that freedom all belong to you. So when the world feels like it's closing in, don't just look around, look within. Because if your mind is the prison, then it is also the portal. The question is, will you stay locked in, or will you walk through? 2. Perception is the true battle. It's not the event that defines your life, it's the meaning you assign to it. Two people face the same storm, yet one grows stronger and the other falls apart. The difference isn't in the weather, it's in the perception. And if you're not aware of the filter through which you see the world, that filter will control you without your permission. That's why perception isn't a minor detail. It's the entire battlefield. In Stoic philosophy, this isn't just a metaphor, it's the central truth. You don't suffer because life is hard. You suffer because you believe it shouldn't be. Your mind is the lens, and everything you experience passes through it first. When the lens is clear, you see obstacles for what they are, temporary, external, and ultimately powerless without your consent. But when the lens is dirty with emotion, fear, and expectation, you misread everything. A delay becomes a disaster. A disagreement becomes a betrayal. A loss becomes a personal curse. Most people don't realize they're not seeing the world. They're only seeing their thoughts about the world. And until you fix that, nothing outside will ever bring peace inside. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, facing pressure that would crush most men, wrote to himself not about armies or politics, but about perception. You have power over your mind, he reminded himself, not outside events. That line alone contains enough wisdom to change a life. It reframes the entire struggle, because the fight was never out there. It was always within. And if that's true, it means the way you interpret the moment determines the weight it has on you. What breaks one man sharpens another. What ruins one person wakes another up. And that shift begins the second you question your judgment. The mind loves drama. It exaggerates pain, predicts the worst, and assumes the meaning of things it barely understands. It plays out conversations that never happened and prepares for outcomes that never will. That's why you must step back from your thoughts before you trust them. Emotions are loud, but they aren't always accurate. Just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it's important. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's harmful. And just because your mind tells you the sky is falling doesn't mean the sky agrees. When you live without mastering perception, life becomes one long emotional reaction. You swing from frustration to fear, from anger to regret, never realizing you've handed your power to every passing opinion or inconvenience. But when you train your mind to pause, when you learn to question the narrative, you take that power back. You stop being the character in the story and become the author. And that changes everything. You might be thinking, how do I do that? How do I train perception when the world feels chaotic and overwhelming? It starts with awareness. You can't change a filter you don't know is there. So when something shakes you, a harsh word, a failed plan, an unexpected loss, don't react. Wait, breathe. Ask yourself, Is this as bad as it feels, or is my mind exaggerating it? Is this a threat to my life, or just to my ego? That gap between reaction and reflection is where mental strength is built. Next, zoom out. Stoics practice the art of perspective by imagining themselves from a distance, from above, from years in the future, even from their deathbed. When you step outside your own urgency, you start to see things as they are, not as your emotions say they are. That email that ruined your day, forgotten in a week. That person who didn't reply, dealing with their own storm. That plan that failed, opening a path you couldn't see until now. The moment you zoom out, you remember what really matters. And most of the time, it isn't what you're obsessing over. Then, shift the question. Stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? Or better, how can I respond with clarity? That shift pulls you out of victimhood and into power. You're not ignoring reality. You're choosing your stance toward it. And that single act reclaims more control than 1,000 external wins ever could. Because the world will never stop changing, disappointing, or surprising you. But if you master how you see, you master how you live. The truth is, perception isn't about being blindly positive or forcing a fake smile. It's about being mentally honest. It's choosing to respond with reason instead of reaction. It's having the courage to see clearly when your emotions want to distort. And it's remembering that clarity is not passive. It's an act of strength. In a world that wants you to react, your calm is rebellion. Your pause is power. Your perspective is your protection. So the next time life throws something unexpected, don't just ask, what now? Ask instead, what am I telling myself about this? And is that helping me grow or holding me back? Because that's the true battle. And the one who wins it isn't the one with perfect circumstances. It's the one who learns to see clearly, no matter how dark the moment feels. 3. You don't control life, but you control your response. Life doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready, doesn't soften its blows just because you've had a rough week. It moves without warning, flips your plans, tests your patience, and often pushes you to the edge. And the truth is, you don't control any of it. Not the weather, not the people, not the outcomes. But you do control one thing that matters more than all of that combined: your response. And that response defines everything. Not just how you feel, but who you become. When something goes wrong, most people ask, why is this happening to me? But that's the wrong question. Life isn't singling you out. It's just unfolding as it always does, imperfect, unpredictable, often unfair. What makes the difference is what you do next. Stoicism teaches that while you can't stop the external chaos, you can command your internal order. You can't choose the weather, but you can prepare your mindset. You can't control how others treat you, but you can decide how much power you give their words. And when everything feels like it's slipping away, that one act of control becomes your anchor. This mindset isn't passive. It's not about pretending things don't hurt or denying what's unfair. It's about reclaiming the power you lose when you react blindly. Because every reaction is a decision, even if you're not aware of making it. Yelling back, shutting down, blaming, panicking, these don't happen to you. They happen through you, which means they can be reworked, restructured, and redirected. But only if you pause long enough to notice. That pause is where mastery begins. When a Stoic is insulted, they don't take it personally. Not because they're numb, but because they've trained their mind to separate opinion from fact, noise from meaning. They understand that not everything deserves a response, and not every trigger deserves your energy. If someone disrespects you, you can burn hours replaying the moment. Or you can breathe, stay composed, and walk away with your dignity intact. That's not a weakness, that's strength under command. You might say, but that's hard. I can't help how I feel. That's fair. Emotions arise on their own. You don't choose the first feeling, but you always choose the second. The first is reflex, the second is response. And that gap between the two is where character is forged. Every time you resist the urge to lash out, every time you choose calm over chaos, every time you decide to hold your silence instead of exploding, that's not avoidance. That's training. Training your emotions to serve you, not sabotage you. Daily life gives you endless chances to practice this. When your flight is delayed, when your coworker takes credit for your work, when your partner says something that cuts deeper than it should. You don't need a life crisis to apply Stoicism. You need awareness in the ordinary, because the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be steady, and steadiness comes from discipline, not comfort, from awareness, not impulse. Start small. Next time you're annoyed, catch it. Don't shame yourself, just notice, then ask, what am I about to do, and will that help me or hurt me? You don't have to have the perfect answer. Just interrupt the autopilot. You'll find that most of what you think you have to react to doesn't actually need your reaction. And in that realization, you start building real peace. Not the kind that's quiet because nothing's happening, but the kind that stays quiet even when the storm hits. You also begin to see the power of reframing. Instead of "this is unfair," try "this is a test." Instead of "why me," try "now what." The words you say in your head become the energy you carry into the world. And that energy is contagious. People can feel it. More importantly, you can feel it. It either drains you or strengthens you. So be deliberate. Talk to yourself like someone worth listening to. Not soft, not sentimental, but grounded, honest, clear. There will be moments when you want to scream. Let them come, but don't let them take the wheel. Emotions are like weather, they pass. But your reaction, if unchecked, can leave damage long after the storm is gone. That's why Stoics practiced mental rehearsal. Premeditatio malorum. Imagine challenges before they arrive so they won't be rattled when they do. Not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. To stand firm when others break. Ultimately, your response is your reality. You don't choose what life throws at you, but you do choose whether it builds you or breaks you, whether you carry it with grace or crumble under its weight. And that choice, made again and again in the silence of your own mind, is what shapes your life. So the next time the world hits hard, and it will, don't just react. Remember who holds the key. Not the world, not the moment, not the person standing in front of you. You do. And that changes everything. 4. Silence is power when the mind is calm. Not all silence is the same. Some silence is empty, some are heavy, and some, when chosen, when deliberate, hold more power than 1,000 loud voices. We live in a world that worships speed, reaction, and noise. Speak fast, respond now, defend yourself immediately. But silence, when your mind is calm, becomes a weapon. Not one used to harm, but to protect. It shields your energy, it preserves your clarity. It reminds the world, and more importantly yourself, that your worth isn't measured by your ability to outshout chaos. There's a difference between silence born from fear and silence born from strength. One hides, the other watches. One retreats, the other waits. A reactive mind uses silence as an escape. A disciplined mind uses silence as a strategy. Stoicism doesn't tell you to become passive. It teaches you to become precise. You don't need to respond to every provocation. You don't need to join every argument just because your pride is triggered. You don't need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your calm presence will say everything louder than your voice ever could. And that presence only comes when your mind is anchored. Not distracted, not overstimulated, not racing to defend an identity, but rooted, still. A calm mind doesn't suppress emotion. It filters it. It doesn't deny anger, but it holds it in check. It doesn't shut down, it steps back. In that space, you regain your vision. You stop reacting and start observing. You understand that emotional control isn't about pushing things down. It's about channeling them wisely. And that's where silence becomes powerful. It's the space between impulse and intelligence. The pause that prevents regret. The breath that protects your peace. You've seen it before. Someone insults you in front of others, hoping to get a rise out of you. You say nothing. You look them in the eye and say more with your silence than they ever said with their words. It disarms them. It exposes their need for attention. It reveals their lack of control. And most of all, it confirms your own composure. In that moment, you're not the target. They are. You're not defending your ego. You're displaying your discipline. Now, this isn't about avoiding conflict at all costs. It's about choosing your battlefield. Stoics don't run from confrontation. But they don't walk into the fire unless it matters. They don't use words to win approval. They use silence to maintain sovereignty. They understand that not every opinion is useful, not every challenge is worth answering, and not every attack deserves attention. That's not a weakness, that's the focus. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, silence becomes rare. and what's rare becomes powerful. Most people feel silent because they're uncomfortable with it. They rush to speak because they fear losing control of the narrative. But those who are calm inside don't need to prove themselves. They don't panic in the pause. They don't reach for validation in noise, because their foundation isn't built on how the world sees them. It's built on how they govern themselves. So how do you reach that state? You start by being intentional. When you feel provoked, ask, what outcome do I actually want here? Is it to win, to be right, or to preserve peace? Often the urge to speak comes from a desire to control the uncontrollable, to change someone's mind, to fix how others see us, to protect a fragile image of ourselves. But when you know who you are, you no longer need to defend every angle. The storm outside doesn't matter when the inside is still. Build your practice daily, in small moments. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a colleague says something snide, when your partner is short with you, don't respond right away. Breathe. Observe. Ask, does this need a reply or just my attention? You'll find that most things pass on their own. You'll find that silence is often the shortest path to peace. And more than that, you'll notice that silence, when you choose it, commands respect. Because it shows that you are not under emotional arrest. You are in control. And control, in the Stoic sense, is never about dominance. It's about restraint. It's about mastering yourself so deeply that nothing outside can hijack your state. It's knowing that calm is not a weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It takes no skill to react. Anyone can yell. Anyone can defend. But it takes training to stay still when the world tries to provoke you. It takes clarity to be silent, not because you're scared, but because you've already decided who you are, and you don't need noise to prove it. The mind, when it's calm, becomes sharp. Your focus returns. Your breathing slows. Your awareness heightens. And in that mental stillness, silence becomes your ally. Not a gap, but a shield. Not absence, but presence. And once you experience that, you stop chasing control outside and start building it within. So when the moment comes, and it always does, when someone tests your patience, when the world demands your reaction, when your ego aches for revenge, pause. Hold your word. Look inward. Ask, is my silence a weakness or is it my power? If your mind is calm, the answer is clear. 5. Discipline is mental freedom. The man who cannot command himself is never free. You can live in a free country, speak your mind, and go where you want. But if you can't direct your own thoughts, control your impulses, or follow through on what you say you'll do, you're still a slave. Not to society, to yourself. That's why discipline isn't restriction, it's liberation. When your emotions no longer pull you in every direction, when your cravings don't dictate your actions, when your focus doesn't scatter at every distraction, that's not punishment. That's real power. That's mental freedom. Discipline is often misunderstood. People think it's harsh, rigid, and joyless. They imagine routines that suck the life out of you, checklists that rob you of spontaneity. But that's not discipline. That's control for its own sake. True Stoic discipline is different. It's rooted in awareness. It's a choice, not a chain. It doesn't choke you, it aligns you. It frees you from chaos, so you can focus on what matters. It shields you from regret, so you can walk through each day with clarity. And most of all, it gives your mind structure, so your energy flows with intention instead of leaking into things that don't serve you. In a world of mental clutter, discipline is what sharpens your edge. When your phone is vibrating, your inbox is full, your emotions are unsettled, and everyone wants your attention, what do you choose? Most drift. Most react. Most say they'll start tomorrow. But the disciplined man doesn't wait for ideal conditions. He builds habits that keep him steady even when everything around him is unstable. Because life will always be unstable. And if you only act when it's easy, you'll rarely act at all. Stoicism teaches us that freedom isn't found in doing whatever you want. It's found in doing what's right, especially when it's hard. And the only way to do that consistently is through discipline. You train your body so it's strong. You train your mind so it's clear. You train your emotions so they serve reason, not sabotage it. And you do that not once, not when it's convenient, but every single day. That's how you move from being ruled by feelings to becoming master of your response. That's how you shift from distraction to direction. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a 20-step system. You need one decision: to act when it's easier not to sit down and write when you don't feel like writing, to go to sleep early even when the world is still scrolling, to speak calmly when your pride begs to explode. These are small choices, but repeated daily, they create a mind that doesn't panic when life hits hard. They create a man who doesn't fall apart when nothing goes to plan. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't shout for applause, but its results speak for themselves. Over time, it builds confidence, not the loud kind, but the kind that doesn't need validation. Because when you trust yourself to follow through, when you know you can rely on your own word, you stop chasing approval. You move with purpose, and people feel that. It's the energy of someone who's grounded, someone who's not at the mercy of his moods, someone who's done the work when no one was watching. You don't build that kind of strength overnight. You build it in moments of choice. When it's cold outside and the alarm rings, when you're tired and the screen tempts you, when you're angry and the words are ready to fly. Each moment is an invitation. Will you act from impulse or from clarity? Will you be led by comfort or by your code? The more often you choose discipline, the more natural it becomes. And eventually, what once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like freedom. Because you're no longer reacting, you're choosing. You're no longer scattered, you're aligned. That's what Stoicism points us toward. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. Not suppression, but direction. Not robotic obedience, but conscious commitment. When you build your day around disciplined choices, you start to see how much you were giving away, how often your focus was stolen, your peace disturbed, your energy drained by things that never mattered. Discipline takes all that back. It restores your clarity. It brings your mind home. So start small. One action you commit to daily, no excuses. Maybe it's 5 minutes of silence. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's not picking up your phone before sunrise. Whatever it is, do it with intention. Do it even when it's boring. Especially when it's boring. That's how discipline gets into your bones. That's how you stop being someone who talks about change and start being someone who lives it. Because in the end, the goal isn't just to feel free. The goal is to be free. And that only happens when you've trained your mind to obey wisdom, not emotion, to follow purpose, not distraction, to move forward, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when no one is clapping. That's discipline. And that's what gives you the kind of freedom no one can take away. 6. Inner peace is the strongest shield. When the world turns loud, when emotions surge, and when chaos knocks on your door, your greatest protection isn't strength, status, or intelligence. It's inner peace. Not the fragile kind that disappears when things go wrong, but the unshakable calm that stays rooted when storms rage. That's what Stoicism trains you to build. A stillness so deep that nothing on the outside can reach it unless you invite it in. We're taught to defend ourselves with words, with arguments, with action. But rarely are we taught to defend ourselves with silence, with presence, with control. Yet it's the inner world, your thoughts, your clarity, your state of mind, that determines how deeply the outer world affects you. Most people live in reaction. They feel threatened by opinions, annoyed by traffic, and crushed by criticism. They get pulled in every direction because they've never built a center that holds. But when you create space between what happens and how you respond, that space becomes your armor. And that space is born from peace. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. It's knowing that you don't need to react to everything that touches you. You don't need to chase validation or explain yourself every time someone misunderstands. You don't need to fix the world before you can feel calm. You simply need to stop handing your power to everything outside of you. That's what the Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire on the edge of collapse. He faced betrayal, war, and relentless pressure, but still found the time in his personal journal to remind himself that true strength comes from mastering the self, not the world. When your inner state is calm, the outside world loses its grip. Words bounce off, pressure softens. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You begin to see clearly, not through fear, but through principle. That clarity isn't automatic, it's earned through practice, through discipline, through daily habits that anchor you in the present, even when everything around you tries to pull you out of it. It starts with awareness. Notice what steals your peace. Noticing doesn't mean judging. It means being honest. Is it social media? Is it someone's opinion? Is it an old thought you keep believing even though it no longer serves you? Once you see it, you can shift it. Not with force, but with focus. You start choosing peace the way you choose your clothes in the morning. Intentionally, thoughtfully, not based on the mood of the day, but based on the man you are becoming. That shift affects everything. Your conversations become sharper because you're not speaking from insecurity. Your decisions become cleaner because you're not acting in panic. Your presence becomes stronger because you're no longer trying to prove yourself. You walk into rooms without needing approval. You hear insults without feeling the need to defend. You face uncertainty without reaching for distraction. Because your stability no longer comes from what's happening around you. It comes from what's happening within you. This isn't about pretending not to feel. Stoicism never asks you to become emotionless. It asks you to become emotionally wise, to feel anger without being ruled by it, to feel sadness without collapsing under it, to feel the pressure without breaking. Inner peace gives you that distance, that control, that breath between feeling and acting. And that breath, if used well, can save you from days, weeks, or even years of unnecessary pain. Building peace is simple, but it's not easy. It takes repetition, just like strength, just like clarity. You start by doing small things consistently, journaling at the end of the day to unload your thoughts, practicing morning silence before checking your phone, walking without headphones to hear your own mind. Not because it's trendy, but because it sharpens your awareness. And awareness is the root of peace. You begin to choose what enters your mind, what stays, what gets filtered out. You don't let every comment, every fear, every expectation settle into your nervous system. You become selective, not in a guarded way, but in a grounded way. You stop consuming everything. You start curating your inner world like a master craftsman, cutting noise, rejecting lies, polishing truth, not to escape reality, but to meet it steady and awake. People will notice, not because you're louder, but because you're not easily moved. Your silence will become a presence. Your calm will become an influence. You won't need to shout to be heard. You'll speak with fewer words, and they'll land with more weight. That's what inner peace does. It speaks through your posture, your tone, your timing. It doesn't argue, it simply is. And in a world addicted to noise, that calm becomes magnetic. So when you feel overwhelmed, don't run, don't fight, don't react. Step back, return to your breath, return to your values. Return to that unshakable ground within you. That's not avoidance. That's leadership. That's what Stoics practiced every day. Not just for their own sanity, but for the good of everyone around them. Because when you carry peace, you don't just protect yourself. You protect the space around you. You become a shield, not just for your mind, but for your life. And that shield is forged, not found. Built, not bought. Carved in stillness and carried in strength. 7. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. There's a voice in your head that never stops talking. It comments on everything. Your actions, your failures, other people, the past, the future. It criticizes, it warns, it judges, it doubts. And the great mistake most people make is believing that voice is who they are. But it's not. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. And that shift from identification to observation is where true freedom begins. Your thoughts are not facts. They're not commands. They're just patterns, scripts. Loops your mind has rehearsed so often that they feel like truth. But they aren't. They're reflections of conditioning, not reality. And until you separate yourself from them, they will run your life on autopilot. That's why people get stuck in fear, in insecurity, in overthinking. Not because their lives are broken, but because they've never stopped to question who's actually doing the thinking. Stoicism teaches you to step back. Not to silence the mind, but to observe it with clarity, to watch your thoughts pass through like clouds, temporary, shifting, and powerless unless you grab onto them. Epictetus didn't say to control everything. He said to control your judgment. Because the moment you believe every thought you think, you become a prisoner of the mind. But when you watch your thoughts like a calm observer, they lose their grip. This isn't detachment for the sake of escape, it's awareness for the sake of power. When you stop feuding with your thoughts, you start seeing them for what they are. suggestions, not orders, emotions, not truths. And that awareness is where your response begins. Because now you're not reacting, you're reflecting. You're not obeying impulse, you're choosing your direction. Thoughts will come. Some harsh, some doubtful, some painful. That's natural. The mind will produce negativity like the body produces sweat. But you don't have to swim in it. You don't have to believe it. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean it deserves your attention. The Stoics would say, is this under your control? If not, release it. If yes, decide how to face it. That practice alone turns a turbulent mind into a calm command center. So how do you start observing your thoughts without being pulled into them? Begin with stillness. Just 5 minutes a day of doing nothing but watching. Watch your thoughts like someone watching traffic, not trying to stop it, not chasing it, just letting it move. You'll be shocked by what your mind throws at you. Old fears, random memories, silent criticisms. But instead of reacting, just note them. There's doubt, there's fear, there's the old story again. That small shift creates distance, and distance creates choice. The problem isn't that the mind speaks. The problem is that we've never learned to question how it speaks. Most of the time, the mind is running outdated scripts, leftovers from childhood, past relationships, and old failures. It repeats patterns not because they're right, but because they're familiar. Unless you intervene, those patterns will shape your perception, your decisions, and your life. But you are not the pattern. You are the one who can change it. That's the power of self-awareness. That's the root of personal development. Not affirmations you don't believe, but the clarity to say, that thought is not me. That voice is not true. That fear is not my future. The moment you speak to your mind instead of from it, you start to lead it instead of follow it. And in that space, emotional resilience grows. Because now when anger shows up, you can say, that's anger, not I'm angry. When doubt arrives, you can say, that's a thought, not this must be true. You become the observer, not the reactor, the director, not the actor. And that separation doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. It lets you respond with calm when others are driven by chaos. It lets you stay grounded when others are pulled by impulse. It lets you live aligned, not with your fears, but with your values. This awareness is the foundation of inner peace. Because peace doesn't come from silence outside, it comes from space inside. When you know that no thought can define you unless you let it, you stop being afraid of what passes through your mind. You stop avoiding discomfort. You stop hiding from yourself, and you start showing up fully, freely, with a quiet kind of confidence that no external validation can match. In daily life, this practice shows up everywhere. When someone criticizes you, pause. Watch what your mind wants to do. Watch the thought that says, I'm worthless, or I need to fight back. And don't follow it. Just see it. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me? Is this reaction aligned with who I choose to be? The answer doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be conscious. Because in the end, the thoughts will keep coming. But who you become depends on how you respond to them. You are not your anxiety. You are not your mistakes. You are not the story your fear is trying to write. You are the one who watches, the one who decides. And that quiet authority, that centered presence is what turns a noisy mind into a powerful force. So next time your thoughts begin to spiral, don't rush to silence them. Just step back. Breathe, observe, and remember, you are not what you think. You are the one who chooses what to believe. And in that choice, your mind becomes your tool, not your trap. In the silence between thought and response, you find who you truly are. Not the chaos of the world, not the weight of expectations, but the deep, steady presence of a mind trained in awareness, shaped by discipline and protected by clarity. If there's one truth to carry with you, let it be this. Your mind can either be your greatest enemy or your most powerful ally. And that choice belongs to you, every moment, every day. We've explored what it means to train the mind like a Stoic, to reclaim control when life spins, to turn perception into power, silence into strength, and discipline into freedom. These are not just ideas to remember, they are habits to embody. And like all things that matter, they require practice. Daily practice, quiet practice. But it's in those small, consistent efforts that inner peace is built, resilience is forged, and true transformation begins. No one can do this work for you. but no one can take it from you either. The world may challenge your focus. It may test your patience. But if you stay rooted in what you can control, your thoughts, your reactions, your path, then no storm outside can break the calm within. So begin today. Observe your thoughts, guard your mind, choose your response, and when the world tries to shake you, return to your center, quiet, grounded, unshaken. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to share your own story in the comments below. What have you faced? What mindset has helped you rise? Your story may be the door someone else needs to open their own. Let your strength speak, not in noise, but in stillness, not in force, but in presence. That is the true Stoic way.